Hey everyone, welcome back
Hello.
for another episode of Valiant Live. I think by the time we have next week's episode, we might have a new name for the live stream. We can actually end up live with Valiant, flip things on its side. We'll see what happens. Pull out. But enough of that. Good morning, everyone. If you've never tuned in before, we're Valiant Technology, a New York-based managed services provider that handles infrastructure, cybersecurity, compliance, and other small business needs throughout the country. Today, I've got with us George Dowderman. He's our president. Justin Pencina, our chief information officer. And Megan Quick, our sales associate. And the topic is refining our solution stack. Now, that was a term that I don't think gets used at all in this industry and something that we started playing around with a couple of weeks ago. And we're just going to jump right in. No special segments this morning or anything.
Right.
Just going to simply ask George, what's this whole stack thing about?
That's a great question. And so the stack is all the pieces that comprise your solution, right? All the pieces. And what happens, I think, a lot of people is that I know myself included, we get focused on like, oh, we have this company to do this thing and this company to do this thing, and we developed this thing in house to solve this problem. But the reality is, you start looking at the technology, but not really looking at the outcome. And so we really want to kind of flip it around a little bit and look at it as a solution stack versus just a tech stack. We start getting into your like nuts and bolts and talk about this, that, and the other thing. You can really get lost in the technology. And I think that's one of the things that we've been guilty of for many years. I know I'll follow my own story on that one. I get excited about, this new fancy thing, this really cool thing, but it doesn't necessarily really help the client move the needle forward in their business. So we want to step back a little bit.
Absolutely.
So,
I think. Oh, sorry, Justin. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I like to think of the tech stack as the tools that you use to implement your solution stack, and the solutions is in some ways the more important part, because the tech changes, but the goal and the solution of what you're trying to do with it, should be something that you focus on.
It's a bit more of the why.
Yeah.
Why we do this, why we do the thing we do versus the how. And you can get, and I think most technology folks really get stuck in the how. This is the way we're trained. It's the way our brains, I think, are wired. The industry kind of focuses on that. We have a lot of vendors always talking about new cool thing. So really, and that can be a dangerous thing, because you start you never actually really realize as much as you can, or actualize the work that you want to get done to achieve the company's goals. And really, that's our real mission, is to put in place the infrastructure and the groundwork so that they can all of our clients and our people we work with can achieve the business goals that they have. So
really, just please excuse me. I am taking my shirt off. But no, that's
that kind of show.
It's getting hot.
That's a big part of the problem, right? We talk about tech stacks, and I think that the one just thing in my head right now is a tech stack could be the equivalent of the tools found in a tradesman's toolbox. This is my hammer from DeWalt. This is my wrench from Craftsman.
The quality of the tools, like you're saying.
Whereas most people just want to know what's going to happen when they do the work with those tools. There's no need to have labels and brands and everything on it, because you don't care about brands, you care about benefits. And that's really why the solution stack was put together. It gives us the ability to visualize and deliver very clear explanations to the benefits that we provide small businesses.
Exactly. I mean, I there's one that we've spoken about over the years, and I've heard it kicked around as a cake, as a car, as a you name it, a house, a boat. But reality is, if you want to use the car analogy, I think is really powerful. No one, unless if you are racing your car or you like doing it yourself,
you're a specialist.
You're a specialist, or you have a high interest in the solution, in the thing. Most people really don't care about what brand brake pads go in, as long as it meets the tolerances of the requirement to stop the car. Right. And I'm sure there's a few out there screaming at the screen, hey, I got to use the OEM one, or you got a carbon fiber.
Then let's just change it up a little bit and say, did I just pass inspection?
Right.
Am I compliant?
Am I compliant? Did I meet the goal? Did I meet the specification of what we want to get done?
Exactly.
And is it going to last the right amount of time? Is it going to stop the car in the appropriate time? Is it going to work wet and dry and hot? And does it meet all those things? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what brand it is, and as long as it was
Yeah.
as long as it was installed correctly, it meets those tolerances. So it's really important. And I think that's all we, and just kind of stepping back on ourselves and looking at our stack. That's how we've kind of reapproached it over the past couple of years. But in the past, I mean, we used to be so obsessed with like, hey, we use this tool to do this thing, and this is the benefits of this tool, but the tool itself is not the thing; it's the outcome.
And look, I once, when I was shopping around for MSPs back in 2010, when I met the fine team at Valiant, I had been exposed to a lot of that. And there was one instance where an MSP came in, and they talked to me about all the solutions. And this is kind of like earlier days of RMM and some other stuff. And they showed me this presentation, and there's just logos all over it. And those logos don't mean a whole lot to me. Internal IT departments are not exposed to the same tools. And all I could think of was Talladega Nights, having the stock car with all of the logos and everything over it. It's like, that's not helping you go any faster. That's just showing who's paying for your car. You're paying for these tools. The whole thing just kind of fell flat.
Right.
I don't care about the brands. I want to know what you're going to do when I'm no longer in this office or I'm away for a while. How are you going to keep things running? And tell me your approaches and your standards and your philosophy behind what it is that you do is infinitely more valuable than seeing a couple of logos on a PowerPoint.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to keep things moving along today. First of all, I just wanted to say a big thank you to our friends over at TitanHQ. I've been in some talks with them lately, and you can't see the shirt because the camera, but look at that.
TitanHQ. All right.
Speaking of logos.
Yes.
Speaking of logos.
I think
This is a good. I'm proud to put this logo on my chest. That's
Yes.
Not saying that the tools and the products and those pieces don't matter. They absolutely do, and we can certainly give all the reasons why we choose the things that we do to get the job done. But before we have that conversation, it's important to have the conversation of this is the job that we're going to get done. This is the result that you're going to have, and now let's talk about all the pieces that go into it.
Right.
Yes.
What is it that we're achieving here? What is it that needs to get completed in terms of to allow a business to meet its goals? So I think we should dive right in there, Matt. Let's go.
Oh yeah, no, we're going to get into this right now. Let's just quickly do an overview of the different layers of the stack. I'll put a graphic up, and just as a quick point, when we talk about things like our philosophy and stability, security, scalability, leading to innovation, that's done modeled after Maslow's hierarchy of need, because there are certain requirements before you can move up. That is not this. This is completely a distribution of what we do and the types of benefits that it brings. Just want to make sure that's clear. So here we go. All right. So if you look at our stack here from the bottom up, it talks a lot about the types of solutions that we, that are part of our stack, starting with infrastructure. That's the basis of everything. If you don't have a strong infrastructure, a strong foundation to build upon, nothing else matters. And if you do want to do like the whole Maslow comparison, that's literally all there is to it. After that comes monitoring and maintenance. Making sure systems are running, understanding if they're working within certain tolerances. Productivity and collaboration. Those are where the basic applications a lot of companies require live. Followed by strategy, security and compliance, and support and training. So that is a quick visualization of our stack for solutions. And we're just going to go through each one of those, starting with infrastructure. So how about we just talk about one or two components of each of these, the importance that they hold for small businesses, and how we implement them.
Yeah, and infrastructure really addresses the almost like the hardware in a lot of ways, the network connection, network, Wi-Fi, firewall stuff, those things that get the connection in, the servers that you have either in your office or in cloud or in a data center, and also the your workstations would fall under infrastructure as well too. Those are the hardware, the real interface between the person doing the work and the technology.
I was going to say that it's the place where the data, which is like what we're working with, the thing that we need, is how we access it. It's the tool. It's the mechanism. It's and you said the right word. It was just the interface.
It's the interface between virtual and physical.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
The other piece that's important in infrastructure, and we put in infrastructure because it's so critical, is data protection. Having local, offsite, or cloud-based backup, and backup for cloud platforms, for SaaS platforms. Consider that part of infrastructure because it's part of making that infrastructure, work and be stable and be available. Is to have that protection on it.
Absolutely, and I think the other piece is that people talk about cloud infrastructure, and we're going to get into this in a future episode. But it's your infrastructure. Someone else may be running it, or someone else may be responsible for a portion of it. But really, what it is, it's infrastructure that supports your mission and your data, which is how you achieve your goals, right? So it's really important that we all kind of internalize that the cloud infrastructure, we're just as responsible for what's in it as we would as if it was in our own office.
Yes,
absolutely.
So,
perfect point, and it definitely leads us to a future episode, which we'll be doing in the next few weeks. The next level or layer, I haven't even defined the terms yet. That's how new and fresh this is, folks. Is monitoring and maintenance, and I'm just going to say it. Please do me a favor and define RMM.
It's remote. Go ahead, Megan. It's all you.
Remote monitoring and management. Right,
Yes.
I said that correct. I work, No, but I remember when I started the job and I was in a sales meeting with you guys, and or with a prospect, and we said RMM, and I was like taking my notes. I was like, what is that? But yeah, remote monitoring and management, it means we can monitor and manage your machines from the Valiant headquarters. George, if you want to go into that a little more too. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's basically the core tool for MSP because it allows remote access and remote control and deeper level management that was unavailable, say, 15 years ago. It's kind of like the really incredibly important piece of it. A lot of people tend to focus too much on it and for what it is because it is just a tool. One thing I think is really important is that in any solution, the management and maintenance of the thing almost will invariably cost more money than the actual thing to purchase. It's one of the pieces that you have to really be thoughtful when you make a technology purchase or any kind of purchase at all. You have to maintain these things. You can't just say, I'm going to buy a laptop, plop it on a desk, and 5 years later buy a new laptop. There's a lot that goes into it. And it may not always be things that are readily apparent that needs to be like patching. I mean, identity management. There's so many pieces that go into this, and I think that the RMM is just a small tool in it, in getting that done.
But it's a tool that's incredibly important because it leads to actionable items.
Correct.
It's understanding certain tolerances of where things operate. It helps you understand if equipment needs to be replaced at some point. There's so many things that it does, and like you said, it's easy to get wrapped up in all of that data. And sometimes it's difficult to differentiate what's important from what is something we want to look at. It's sort of like the same idea with the tech stack. It's we get stuck in the how as opposed to the why or what it's going to help us do.
JP, I think you guys have something you want to add.
Yeah, building off of what you said for the total cost of ownership, using the car analogy, when you think about buying a car, but you also then have to, all the fuel that's going to go into it, replacing the tires, the brake pads,
responding to the engine light, which is the hard way.
And the idea with the monitoring and maintenance, I mean, we're focusing on RMM as a tool that we use for that, but the core piece of that is, like I said, to make sure that all that infrastructure, all those pieces that are there are functioning securely and the way that they're supposed to, so that when somebody goes to use that tool or do their work or do something, it's available and works.
And actually does what its intended purpose is. I think really important. Sometimes you put things in place and they don't work the way you want them to, or so the RMM is part of kind of keeping that guardrail.
Keeps everything in path towards the goals that you're trying to achieve in a technical manner. It's the bumpers you could put in a lane for bowling.
Yes. And talking about bumpers for bowling, I think another really important thing that is a bumper is as a heart and soul is documentation. Secure documentation. We're like fanatical documenters. No matter how good we do, we always are beating ourselves up that we can do better. I know for a fact that like every iteration or every couple of months, we always say, hey, is this the right way to do this? Can we do this better? Can we get more documentation? Because really we want to get it so that the consistency across our clients is consistent, that we're actually delivering the same results for people. Like, one of the complaints we get from a lot of folks, and it's valid, is that they talk to one tech, or they talk to, and then they get a different result. And we're trying to eliminate that, because really, it's really hard to be a business leader when the thing you expect, what you put one input in and you get totally different outputs every time. So documentation is really important to kind of achieve that.
Strong documentation is almost like, part of the premise of the movie Inception. We want to get those thoughts and those particular systems into people's heads, and we do that through very clear and consistent documentation, because then they're giving an answer to a problem without even necessarily realizing that it's coming from the documentation, because it becomes such a natural part of the role.
And one of the newer things that's falling under monitoring and maintenance that over the last few years has been management of SaaS platforms themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
As people have moved stuff into the cloud, the first thought was like, oh, it's in the cloud, it's fine, it's safe. But as you have more and more stuff in more and more places and using different tools for different things, I do need a way to monitor and maintain those services themselves. And we've actually been working with a great partner product called Augment, which has been really beneficial for us for that, to get really insight into what cloud tools are being used and get some management layer onto that for our customers. That's been, I think, exciting, but it's been a relatively new thing to add into that monitoring and maintenance. And it's and becoming more and more critical to have that as part of the monitoring and maintenance, that cloud monitoring.
You're right. And, it's important for small businesses to even be aware of services like this. So, you know what? Hey, Augment people. Just call. We'll get something going there. And with that, we're moving on to productivity and collaboration, which is kind of the area that I get the most excited about.
This is Matt. This is your house, Matt. This is where you like to operate in. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, it starts with having some really good tools. And look, all of us know about Microsoft Office and Google Workspace for good reason. They work. Yeah. They simply do what we need to do. They are sort of like a baseline requirement for many workplaces. And nowadays, since everything is living up in the web and these software as a service type of scenarios, it's a little bit different from simply going and installing Office off of a CD like we used to do. The days of CDs and Clippy are over. And now that everything's in the cloud, sometimes having the right people do those deployments and make sure that they're configured properly is the difference between using Microsoft Word as a word processor and using it as grounds for brainstorming, coming up with breakthrough ideas, along with the other more collaborative capabilities. It also includes doing things like helping define workflows in SharePoint. I think that SharePoint is a polarizing word. You either absolutely love it because you've had a good experience with it, or it's the feeling you get when, like, you're getting bitten by a mosquito. You just, you kind of get a little worked out.
Or the sound of the dentist drill. No offense to dentists out there. I'm a big fan of dentistry, but most people don't like the sound of the drill or the smell of their teeth burning.
Right.
So.
That's actually a Glade plugin. No, on a more serious note. But yeah, there are a lot of tools out there, and many of these tools do come included with licensing for things like Office 365. You're paying for them. So it's important to be able to leverage them in a way that makes sense. And they are powerful tools once you understand them. And that's a large part of what we like to do there.
I'd also throw in there some of the great Google Apps tools that are emerging now that I think getting some wrapping your arms around them and utilizing them well can be game changers for business, especially when they came from a zero email only collaboration environment to go to something where it's an active kind of online multifaceted collaboration.
Task management, video chatting, the file sharing for shared authoring, they make a very big difference. I mean, even internally in our team,
Absolutely.
Oh my
having
goodness,
really
yeah.
embrace those technologies has made a huge difference. Even the stuff that we put together each week here has changed
Exactly.
significantly.
And so one of my favorite things is when somebody says, "Hey, we need to find a way to do this. Do you know of any products that do that?" And I get to say, "Yeah, you have something that does it. Let me show you how to
Yeah.
use this tool."
The solutions
that's
coming from
there.
inside the house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, this is." I love the one I get. I love is we need a way to send large files, and I was like, "Well, no problem. Let me show you. It's you click these two buttons, and you have it. It's there, and
Yeah.
it's just built in." And having those, being able to put together those workflows, being able to utilize those tools and to for that productivity is, I think, is always one of the more rewarding things to do.
Not only is it rewarding, but the way you just put it's kind of exciting, because when you think about it, the better we refine our solution stack, the better value we're bringing to customers. But at the same time, the more we're limiting their solution stack based on a lack of knowledge around tools that they already have. Like you said, if you have OneDrive, there's no need for you to be using, say, Google Drive, Box, and all these other things at the same time. At least most likely not. And this is a good opportunity to sit down and really figure out what it is that you're using, what it is that could be posing a security risk that you don't even need to have, what you're being billed for that's unnecessary. And that's the beauty of looking at this technology in this solution stack as opposed to a tech stack. I want to get moving along a little quickly. I know it's Friday. We've all got a lot to do.
Friday.
The third kind of major item inside of the productivity and collaboration stack is voice over IP calling and UCaaS. Unified Communications as a System.
Says a system or a service, depends on who you ask.
Sorry. No, that was Friday. That was Friday talking as a system. And the technology has really, really changed when it comes to things like IP-based telephony. I remember 10, 15 years ago, the early IP office installations were okay. And then I think Intertel had some really great stuff with their switches connecting offices. But again, a lot of that stuff was still on-prem, but had the ability to reach outwards. Now, again, it's all in the cloud. You get a plan with a Ring Central or similar. They send you the phones, the endpoints. You plug them into an interconnection, and that's largely it. Of course, there is configuration work and implementation, and that's why it's something that we, offer as a service here. But again, just like everything else, it can be a telephone that you make phone calls with, or it could become a tool that helps transform your business and the way you communicate with each other.
Absolutely. And, we use phones very heavily as a company. We operate a service desk, obviously. And it becomes not only does it become a productive collaboration, but it becomes part of your security and planning for that, because using a UCaaS provider, a reputable one, can be a way of communicating with your clients. It's really powerful.
Last week we had our tabletop, and one of the items were a major power outage before I suffered my major power outage. And in that scenario, they had an on-prem phone system, so it was completely disabled. If they had something that was up in the cloud and their staff members had endpoints in their homes or portable, like mobile phones with the app involved, installed, they would have been able to continue communicating.
Correct.
And that would have been a takeaway. We need to replace this on-prem phone service with something that is going to be much more resilient and there when we need it. And that's, again, a part of what goes on here, which leads us to the next part of our stack, strategy.
Meat and potatoes. I think this is in some ways infrastructure and monitoring, maintenance and productivity is like kind of expected, but the strategy is like the hardest part, and that we work on continuously, truly continuously improving our outcomes. So I think that you can have this great technology, but if it's not employed both strategically and tactically to your customers or a company, it's just a waste of money. Quite honestly, it's better not to do it. That's just the reality of it. It's really important. We take it really seriously. We assign VCIOs to every customer we work with. And beyond working with the VCIOs, almost all of our customers work with our management team, because we really want to squeeze out the best outcome for the customer with them.
We want to know what their growth plans are, what's important to them, what their business strategy is, their strategy for growth, so that we can support that, so that we can put in tools and services that help them achieve those goals and do those things. And the only way you do that is by understanding their strategy and talking to them.
I think there's like a Yeah, and I think with you guys, kind of what you're saying is like there's a lot of compartmentalization sometimes with business leaders. Like they have strategy for their business and they don't realize the IT could support the strategy really well or automate something that has been a thorn in your side. And Justin, kind of what you were saying earlier about like, oh, I show someone it's 2 clicks and all of a sudden their workflow is so much easier. I think what's cool about when we apply strategy, when we have our VCIOs who can be that consultant, and the QBRs, which are our quarterly business reviews, where we meet and we understand the goals, it's a really cool moment to be like, we have a solution that's IT based to help you achieve this goal.
Right.
Sorry, I got excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think linking it back even to the let's say the VoIP calling thing. It's if we have a conversation with a client and they say, we wanted to have we're going to hire a bunch of door-to-door salesmen now. That's going to be our strategy for growth, and we want to find a way to allow them to communicate. It's like, oh, these are the things that are going to help achieve that. We'll get you this VoIP calling system where they can install on their phones, and we'll get you
Exactly.
here's this cloud
Absolutely.
tool that you have that they can fill out their product sheets in rather than separately. And then if that's not, whatever the business goal is, whatever the strategy is to achieve that, we can find ways to help support that and be there to support that.
And speaking of be there, one of the other items that we can talk about really quickly in the solution stack section is our customer support portal. It's where you would get your standard support, but also have a status of things, licensing, equipment inventories.
Yeah, which is huge for a lot of people.
The quarterly business reviews, and it's all in one place. As much as I dislike the term, it's a true single pane of glass for what it is that we're bringing to your company.
Yeah.
Right.
You throw in the amazing team that we have for vendor management and technology procurement, and that's a pretty complete grouping of components for that particular part of the stack. Moving on, and this is the one where I'm going to take a step back and let Justin and George do their thing. Security and compliance.
Yeah.
Sure.
Me too.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'll
all
step
of this
back. That's
stuff.
what I was saying.
Once we put all this stuff in place, it has to be something that's secure, and it has to be compliant with your business policies. I mean, if it's not secure, it becomes a liability instead of a benefit or a tool.
Yeah, and I think also, I'm sorry, George, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, please, Matt, go ahead.
You can have everything in the world, but it's like just going back to the whole car analogy. You could have that 5-point harness in your race car, but if you don't bother putting it on, you go through the windshield. It's like, yeah, you had the tool, you didn't implement it.
Yeah. Or the seatbelt, just very basically. Yeah.
Exactly. I think a lot of times with security, just read the news. It's just like people getting hammered with this terms. As I was talking to everyone before, on NPR yesterday, talking about supply chain attacks, and I think that there's just so much out there about it right now, but it is very scary. And then we have to really be very thoughtful on protecting each piece of it by looking at the holistic review and things that are reasonable that people are going to do, right? If the security is so tight and so overwhelming, people will do everything they can to get around it. Yeah. So it defeats the purpose of it. So we don't want a self-defeating system where people go out of the way to get around the tools.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, just a really quick, great example of that with 2FA. I mean, there are a lot of pieces of software that could allow you to have your 2FA tokens on your phone. A lot of people do that. You could have them on your machine. Once they're on your machine, it's much less secure. I mean, it's in a place where you shouldn't have it as far as I'm concerned.
Correct.
But when you do something like implement a product like Duo, like we use, and it becomes a push notification system, 2FA, MFA goes from being like, that extra step to, hold on a second, hit the phone and you're good to go. That's the ease that helps you prevent people from trying to get around.
Much like DNS filtering. Like that's a product that runs in the background and it's very subtle until it needs to be not subtle. And that's the idea. It's like kind of the roadhouse. It's just be nice. Be nice. We're watching, and the idea behind all these tools are meant to be as unintrusive as possible. Yesterday, Justin and I did a training on phishing and email security and looking at email protection, spam, phishing, and we're still relying on. Unfortunately, we're still relying a lot on folks to take behaviors, but slowly but surely, we're getting some better tools that really help make it easy for the end users or the staff to like identify things that are dangerous or that sort of thing. So it's just pops a banner, that sort of thing. And finally, I'm going to adjust double compliance, because I noticed something that's near and dear to his heart.
Yeah, the compliance management. I mean, even for businesses that don't have a like an external compliancy that they have, like HIPAA or something like that. There will be.
There will, yeah.
That's definitely something that that the winds are blowing in that direction. But even without that, it still is important for your business to have some type of compliance management to be compliant with the policies that you want to have in place. I mean, just like you'd have HR policies and you'd have ways of making sure you're following your HR policies, those get extended into your IT and your technology and your data and information. And it's part of being able to keep things secure is being able to make that policy and say, this is how we store our secure information. This is how we are verifying that we're compliant with that policy. And the nuts and bolts of what those policies are vary wildly from organization to organization. But just that core idea of, this is what's important to us. This is what is sensitive data. This is we need to protect. How are we going to protect that? What are we going to do for that? And then how are we going to make sure that that's happening?
Right. Exactly. I mean, yeah, I think that unfortunately compliance is confused with security. It's a component of security. It's a mechanism to build a framework for security that we hang anything off of.
The establishment of controls that are aligned with any guidelines from local, state, or federal authorities. I mean, that's where I tend to look at it. And you know what? We've done a couple of streams on compliance. So if you're watching this, you want to know more, check out our YouTube channel, The Valiant. I always do that, The Valiant Way. No, it's not. It's youtube.com. You know those guys.
Have you heard of it?
YouTube.com/Valiant Technology. There's literally hundreds of videos in differing topics. There's guides, how-tos, tutorials. But there is a playlist containing of all of our streams. And we actually did one maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago on compliance with one of our software vendor partners. And that's a great watch. All right, folks, it's time to take it home with support and training. That's where we're going now.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do this quick. This is interesting because this is like the most straightforward stuff. We have 24/7 support from a North American-based help desk. I think that's big. Not everyone does offer the 24/7 support. You never know when something's going to happen. Networks are up all the time. They don't work from 9 to 5. They work from midnight to the next midnight.
Yes.
I'm not thinking the 24-hour clock, okay?
The next midnight. Oh my God. Sorry. It's poetry, Matt. Okay, go on.
I like it. Don't stop now.
From the moon's crest to that's important. And it's one of those things like, and then this is valuable to me when I'm working with any service. When I was looking for MSPs in the past, I want to be able to call a support desk multiple times and begin to know who it is that I'm talking to. That's important to me when we deal with vendors as well. I want to be able to know someone by name. I don't need to know everything about them, but I do need to have that sense that they understand and can empathize with what's going on. And some of that comes from having a history of communication. And I think that's a lot of what happens here.
One thing that struck me, I'll work the phones, not recently, but during the height of the pandemic, I would support do support desk stuff and usually just making tickets. But I loved it because people would be like, oh, I want to talk to Conrad. I want to talk to him. Like, they feel safe. They're like, Conrad gets me. He gets
He's my spirit animal.
Yeah, it was like, and I loved that. I love that about our team. I was like, oh yeah, our clients really know our team members, and they have a rapport. That's everything.
Quick story: when I came on board, I went into our ticketing system and I searched for myself because I wanted to see how many companies I had records under, and I kind of got strangely nostalgic and kind of like tingly when I started seeing like Darren Daly's ticket, being in my office in 2011 and having a comment like, watch out, Matt's got a cable going from one side of the room to the other. You will clothesline yourself. But it's like that, I even when I walked in the door the first day, I didn't know people by faces, but I knew the names, and it was because of the ability to have those conversations and those interactions early on. And that's important. That's an important part of anything related to technology, communication. You need to be able to communicate clearly. You need to be able to have conversations. You need to be able to on both sides say, I have no clue what's going on. Let's figure out what the solution is. And I think that's what we get from our support team. Now, that said, there's also training components in here. We already touched upon that a little bit, but there is training on the common applications, a lot of what's in the productivity part of our solution stack on Office 365, Google Workspaces, and kind of tangential pieces of software from both of those major companies. We talk a lot about collaboration. In fact, anyone watching that wants to know more about collaboration, download our free collaboration adoption guide. It is absolutely free. Well, now you need an email address so it can get sent to you, but that's literally it.
Yep.
Definitely check it out. It's something that I worked hard on with the team, and it really is worth the read. But collaboration, security best practices, as George was just mentioning, that's critical in forming a really, really effective strategy for a business to protect itself. It's not just about creating concentric circles of security around yourself in different layers. It's also about making sure that your staff members are aware of what's happening and they can see a scam from a mile away. And then, of course, we also have our public-facing items here. We have our knowledge base on the website, thevaliantway.com/KB. We have our online content, our blog posts, our weekly live streams, just like this one. All the videos I had mentioned earlier on YouTube. They're just all of these other resources, and those do fall under support and training. Are they designed necessarily to train? No, but they are designed to educate and maybe entertain a little bit. I mean, we do get a little wacky here every now and then, right?
We try.
Only slightly. Sometimes.
Oh, by the way, Justin, we're going to have to look at this later because both you and I went like this at the same exact time. It was like a step this moment. But so that's our solution stack in a nutshell. Yeah. It could be something that can be discussed for hours and hours, but it doesn't need to be because these are the benefits. We don't need to get into the nuts and bolts.
I think one thing that's interesting too, that the support and training is the top of the stack. There's all those other pieces there, and that's usually the first thing that people think of when they think about working with an IT partner is, oh, we need to get IT support. And the support is, it's the tip of the spear because it's where your team is going to interact with ours most likely, but it also is built on top of all of these other pieces that go into place. There's all of this other stuff that goes into building that IT infrastructure, and the support and training is absolutely critical to that. Critical to that piece, but it's a portion of that piece.
So, we are sitting here at 37 minutes in. We're getting a little lengthy with some of these streams, and I'm going to work on that because we're only 2/3 of the way through. So I tell you what, we're going to skip the third segment today because it's all about our philosophy and how the solution stack aligns with it. But we talk about that all the time. And I tell you what, you want to know more about our philosophy?
Check it out.
Yeah.
Send us an email, call us, ask for me, and I'll have a conversation with you about it. This is something that we're passionate about, and we're happy to discuss, but we're not going to do it right now because there's just not enough time. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about the next block of content that we're working on for everybody.
Very exciting stuff.
Every month we do something different. August was iterative improvement. It was a time that for most companies it's a little bit quiet. It's a time to maybe be a little bit reflective, look at what you're doing, see how you can make yourself better before the end of the year, maybe reach or exceed some goals that you've set. September is all about environment. Now, it's environment in different ways. We're going to have a stream that talks about how to create healthy computing environments. And in that situation, in that case, I don't mean healthy for humans, but healthy for the computers themselves. Understanding why you need to have the right conditions, why something like humidity is important. I've seen condensation take place on servers and seen them fail. That is heart-wrenching to see. It's a painful thing, but we're going to get into that. We'll share some stories. I know that we all have a couple of battle scars here and there from situations where rooms were not exactly optimal. We're going to talk about technology's impact on the environment, our environment, resource depletion, proper recycling, things like that. I think that everyone knows someone who's had a computer room with a bunch of desktops in the back, and that's something that can be solved very easily.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about the demystifying the cloud a little bit, and that it's really just, as the memes tend to go, it's just someone else's computer. But we're going to delve into that and get a little more serious on the topic. And we've got some other things that are coming together that we're excited to talk about in the near future. But it is 11:10 on Friday. It's encroaching on my lunch hour, so we're gonna have to.
Lunch hour. I didn't realize you were taking a short lunch today, man.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna say anything. Just the live audience
He's not a
doesn't know.
baking company. This is a technology company, sir. Get at your desk.
So anyway, everyone, thank you so much for today. It is a Friday stream. It does feel a little bit different, but I think it was a lot of fun. And it was really honestly satisfying to go through the solution stack for officially the first time. That graphic came together yesterday evening. The idea came together late last week. So this was a test run. That was a beta, if you want to say. And if anyone out there has any questions for us, please do email us. You can just email us at sales@thevaliantway.com. It'll come to me and I'll make sure it gets to the right person. If you have any questions, we've got this lovely Microsoft form that you can fill in and we'll get a notification. We'll get back to you. And as always, if you do have questions as we're live, you can leave comments on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, and we will see them and we will interact. If you've got a serious question or comment or opinion, you want to come on in, we might even invite you on screen with us as well and join in the conversation. So with all that said, does anyone have any closing remarks they'd like to make before I hit the button for the exit video, little video thing?
Nope. Just say thanks, everybody.
Have
a great weekend. Stay safe, and talk to you all next week.
All right, folks. Stay classy.